Hi, hello aspirants. Welcome back to the UPSC podcast presented by Syllabus Coach. You can listen these, learn and revise the Indian history. So friends, we have completed Indian ancient history and now we have successfully entered into the medieval Indian history. Friends, I have got good feedback from those who have listened our ancient Indian history podcast. They said it is being very helpful for them to revise before their prelims examination. So with that enthusiasm, I am moving to the medieval Indian history. Friends, I would like to cover medieval Indian history in a different way. Many of you might fear medieval Indian history. In my initial preparation days, I also did very much fear about it because it is full of names, full of dynasties, more of new names to Indians because of those Urdu and some of the foreign words which have entered. So, what I have tried to do is I am more focusing on the UPSC perspective. That is, again, I am telling you more than the names of the kings, the society, the administration, the religion, the what to say, military administration, revenue administration, religion, art and architecture. These are what really matters for the UPSC examination, whether it is prelims, mains, etc. And you have to know the historical context why it has come at that particular point of time, what are the socio-economic circumstances, what are the global circumstances that led to these events happening in India and all. Okay, in that way I will be taking you forward. So hope you are all enjoying this podcast. Now coming to the medieval India, friends, let me give you the context. In the last lesson of ancient Indian history, I have told you about Harshavardhana, and I have told you that his capital was Kannauj, right? That was the place where he used to give that quinquennial distribution of all the wealth he has personally owned to about 50 lakh people, etc. So remember that capital is Kannauj or Kanyakubja, right? So now what exactly is medieval India, friends? Medieval India is more related to the feudalistic India, or you can also say the time between the Harshavardhana and the entry of the Europeans. Okay. So who were the beginners of the medieval Indian history? Or actually these are all the context we have given to them. They don't know. For example, if I say Rajputs have started medieval India, Rajputs don't know that yes, we are starting the medieval Indian history. It's not like that. So the historians, mostly the foreign historians or some of the present Indian historians, have divided our Indian history into three ways: the ancient history up to Harshavardhana, okay, the medieval Indian history from Rajputs to the entry of the foreigners, and the modern history beginning from the entry of the Europeans to the Indian Independence Day, right? So in that way, they have divided with some similarities in each sector, right? So now in the medieval history, I'm bringing you again to this place called Kannauj. Okay, after the death of Harshvardhana and fall of the Pushyabhuti dynasty, there are three important dynasties that are fighting for Kannauj. Okay, important dynasties from three different areas, right? The first one are the Palas. Palas are from the Bengal and Bihar region. The second one are the Pratiharas or the Rajputs from the western and the central India. And the third one are the Rashtrakutas from the present Maharashtra and the surrounding areas. So just imagine the Indian map. And Kannauj is in UP region. So three dynasties are trying to gain hold over the central Indian city, which has been the capital for a few hundred years earlier, right? So Palas from Bengal side, Pratiharas or Rajputs from the northwestern side, and Rashtrakutas from the Maharashtra side of India, right? They are trying to gain the hold over the Kannauj. Now let me give you a brief glimpse. I'm not trying to explain each and every king, okay, but I'm trying to give you a glimpse of these three dynasties in this first video. The Palas. Palas are the Bengal rulers. They were succeeded by Senas. Okay, you should understand that Palas and then Senas have ruled Bengal. Now, who are Palas? The Pala dynasty uh, has rulers like Dharmapala who established universities like Vikramshila, Jagaddela in Bihar and Oddantapura in West Bengal. Friends, I am not telling you the Pala kings, but I want to tell you two important things related to Palas. The first one is Pala king Dharmapala had established the University of Vikramshila, which is very famous in Bihar, Jagaddela, Bihar, and Oddantapura, West Bengal. This is first point. Second point, in Pala, the Pala kings have majorly patronized the Vajrayana Buddhism. So I have already told you that after Pala, Senas have ruled Bengal. So these two dynasties you have to remember because these two are the last patrons of Buddhism. So I have to say, I can conclude that after and Palas and Senas in India, there were no established kings or dynasties that really patronized Buddhism, and we can safely conclude that the end of Palas and Senas have officially ended Buddhism patronizing in India, right? So that is about Palas. Now, second thing about the Pratiharas. Friends, Pratiharas are not Rajputs completely. Rajputs, there are lot of various classes of Rajputs. Pratiharas are one among them and most powerful among the Rajputs. So advent of Rajputs we can say begins the early medieval India, friends. And what is the main source of Rajput history? There should be a literature, right? I have told you in ancient history that in the beginning when there was no written literature, the inscriptions were the major source of proofs. But now after the advent of languages like Sanskrit, Tamil and other languages, so the books or the literature are the real literary proofs. So, which is the biggest source of Rajput history is the a book called Prithviraj Raso. Remember Prithviraj Raso? It is considered as the first book of Hindi language. Okay, it was written by a person called Chand Bardai. Chand Bardai in this book called Prithviraj Raso has clearly stated that there are only four pure Rajput clans. Okay, friends, here there may be some controversies, but actually, according to his book, there are four pure Rajput clans. Those four Rajput clans are also called as Agnikula Kshatriyas. Now I am naming who are those four Agnikula Kshatriyas. The first one are the Pratiharas, Paramaras, Chauhans, and Solankis. All these four words seem to be familiar to most of us. Pratiharas, Paramaras, Chauhans, and Solankis, right? Now, according to this book, Prithviraj Raso, okay, the originator of Rajputs came from a fire sacrifice performed on Mount Abu. This is like a fairy tale, okay. There was a fire sacrifice performed on the Mount Abu in Rajasthan, and from them came the originator of Rajputs, okay. Now, let me tell you about Pratiharas. Friends, why I am focusing on Pratiharas? Because I have told you the three major dynasties which are in the early medieval India are Palas, Pratiharas, and Rashtrakutas. I have told you how Palas very important for Buddhism, especially Vajrayana Buddhism. Now I am talking about Pratiharas. So Pratiharas are the kings who ruled Rajasthan and Gujarat. So they are also called as Gurzara Pratiharas. Okay. So Gujarat, the present state, has got its name from these kings called as Gurzara Pratiharas. Right. So Paramaras are the central Indian kings. Okay, their capital is Dhar. Dhar is the present Madhya Pradesh. Okay, Bhojaraja was a great king who constructed the Bhojpuri town. So friends, these are about the Paramaras. Now about Chauhans. So I can say that Chauhans are also kings who ruled Rajasthan. So one of them is Jairaj Chauhan, who has built this city called Ajmer. At that time, it was called as Ajay Meru. So it was called as the abode of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, and his famous Dargah is now Indian Mecca. Friends, you know Ajmer Dargah, right? So that Ajmer Dargah is actually the Dargah of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti. So this city was actually built by Jairaj Chauhan. A person called Jayachandra, he was also a Rajput. Okay, Jayachandra invited Muhammad Ghori to invade India and to defeat Prithviraj. Okay, so the Indian Rajput king Prithviraj, who is the famous Rajput king, so Muhammad Ghori was invited by a person called Jayachandra to defeat this Prithviraj. Okay, Tomras helped Prithviraj in second battle of Tarain, that is 1192 AD, when he lost. Right. Now, coming to the last one is Solankis, or called as the Gujarati Chalukyas. So, friends, there are two Chalukyas till now. One is the Western Chalukyas or the Badami Chalukyas. Second one are the Eastern Chalukyas, which ruled parts of Andhra Pradesh. Now, these are the Gujarati Chalukyas, also called as Solankis. So, these Solankis are the rulers who has built the Sun Temple at Modhera, Gujarat. Okay, in their rule only, Muhammad Ghazni. Okay, earlier it was Muhammad Ghori, now it is Muhammad Ghazni, has plundered the Somnath temple in 1026 AD. Somnath temple was the richest early medieval temple. Friends, I would like to give you clarity. Muhammad Ghazni came before Ghori. Okay, Ghazni came around 1026 AD and has plundered the Somnath temple. It was during the rule of Solankis. And Muhammad Ghori came in 1191 AD and he fought against Prithviraj. Prithviraj Chauhan. Now, Chandelas. Chandelas are also part of the Rajput dynasties, but according to Prithviraj Raso book, they are not the part of the four Agnikulak Kshatriyas, right? But Chandelas, let me tell you a brief thing about Chandelas. So they have ruled Madhya Pradesh areas. They have built the Khajuraho temple, which is in Nagara style, but with Panchayatan. Panchayatan system, friends, it is worship of five gods. Okay? Now Vidyadhara is the only Indian ruler to resist Muhammad of Ghazni. It's like a big Kandariya Mahadeva, he's a famous king. He has built many erotic sculptures. He is also a part of the Chandelas. Now, I am also coming to another dynasties which are related to the Odisha region called as Eastern Gangas. Friends, Eastern Gangas in the art and architecture perspective, they are very important for one particular thing called as Duela or Reiki architecture. Many of us think there are only two or three temple architectures, right? The Nagara style of North India, Dravida style South India, the Vesra style, which is an amalgamation of Nagara and Dravida, but actually there are many more styles, but which is restricted to Odisha is called as the Reiki or Duela style of architecture that was started by Eastern Gangas. For example, Puri Jagannath temple is like having features of Reiki and Duela architecture. Okay, so friends, now just remember that North Nagara, South Dravida, West is like Vesara, and East is like Rekhi or Duela architecture. So these are broadly the four different types of temple architecture situated in four different regions of India. So now, Eastern Ganga's first capital is a place called Tripuri, and second capital is the Puri, present Puri of Odisha. So, what are the features of the Rekhi or Duela architecture? First one, they have vertical towers. Okay, for example, Konark Sun Temple, if you observe, it has vertical towers. And second one is Amalakas. They have Amalakas which are also present similarly in Dravida. And third one is vertical allocation or arrangement of sculptures in the tower. On the towers, they have sculptures, friends. So that is the beauty of Reiki or Dula architecture. They have wooden idols like Krishna, Balabhadra, Subhadra. For example, friends, these wooden idols of Subhadra are present in Radhayatra of Puri Jagannath temple. We all know that Puri Jagannath Radhayatra is very famous, which happens in Odisha. At that time, these wooden idols of Subhadra, Balabhadra will be carried in the processions. Okay. So, friends, these Balabhadra, Subhadra are believed to be widely Orissa gods. Okay. So, they belong to the Reiki or Dula architecture. Now that's for that I am ending the Rajputs, and now I have come to this Rashtrakutas. Okay, Amogavarsha constructed Manyaketa or the present Malkhed city and made it its capital. Friends, so the capital of Rashtrakutas is the Manyakhet or Malkhed. So who has constructed the city? Amogavarsha. Amogavarsha followed Jainism and performed death by Sulekhana. I have explained you what Sulekhana is, right? Chandragupta Maurya has performed Sulekhana, I have told you. That means he has died himself without eating anything in his olden days. The same way, here in Rashtrakutas also, Amogavarsha has performed Jainism. Friends, I have also told you that Jainism has been restricted to the western parts of India like Gujarat, Rajasthan, Bombay, etc., right? Maharashtra, etc. So that's why these Rashtrakutas, which are the rulers of present day Maharashtra and surrounding areas, also followed Jainism. For example, Amogavarsha followed Jainism and even died by this performance of Sulekhana. During the time of Rashtrakutas, Jainism, Vaishnavism, Shaivism became popular, no more Buddhism. Friends, Rashtrakutas have also extensively ruled parts of Karnataka. Many of us feel that their official language is Marathi, but their official language is actually Kannada. Golden Ages Kannada was during the Rashtrakutas, friends. So, the great poets of Karnataka like Pampa, Ponna, Ranna, these three are called as the great Kannada poets. They lived during the Rashtrakutas and were actually patronized by the Rashtrakutas, friends. So, Rashtrakutas have ruled major parts of Karnataka and Maharashtra. Okay. So let me tell you briefly about these three great Kannada poets called as Pampa, Ponna and Ranna. Pampa has written books like Adi Puranam and Vikramarjuna Yuddham. Okay, Adi Puranam is Jain's book. Right? Ponna has written about Shanti Puranam. Ranna has written as Gadya Yuddham. Okay. Friends, you should understand that Kannada literature was developed more during Rashtrakutas rather than Badami Chalukyas. So this is one of the analytical things. Amogavarsha, who is the important king of Rashtrakutas, who is also called as Nrupatunga. Okay, he wrote a book called Kaviraja Marga, which was the first Kannada book on its grammar. Friends, Rashtrakuta credits for, so we need to give credit for these things of Rashtrakutas. Okay, so they have ruled two important states, Maharashtra and Karnataka. Now I am telling you what important things they have done to these states. In Maharashtra, they have built the Elephanta Caves and the Ellora Kailash Temple. Okay, in Ellora there is a Kailash Temple, and in Bombay there is Elephanta Caves. Right, so these two are credited to be the work of Rashtrakutas. In Karnataka, they have developed not only the Kannada literature but also the Jainism literature, and Veerasaivism was also extensively practiced during these Rashtrakutas. Friends, these Elephanta caves are very important for Trimurti. So there is a sculpture in Elephanta caves called as Trimurti sculpture, which is the first depiction of Trimurti in India. So we know Trimurti gods, right? Shiva, Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma. So in India, if the oldest Trimurti sculpture you can find is in Elephanta caves. So Rashtrakutas had also helped the Arab merchants to settle in west coast like Bombay. So that's about Rashtrakutas, friends. Now I am coming to the Cholas. So with Cholas we will end this lesson, and then we will move to the Islamic invasions, Delhi Sultanate, and next to the other legends. Friends, Cholas have ruled about thousands of years. Okay, more than 1,000 years they have written. Now I would like to give you an explanation of some of their kings, okay, who are very great, who are very established names, and then I will take you to their society and other aspects. Okay, with the permission of Rajaraja I, Sailendra, who is Srivijaya Emperor, constructed a Buddhist temple in Nagapattanam. Friends, art and architecture wise, this is a very important thing. Okay, you should understand that with the permission of Rajaraja I, a Chola, there was a Srivijaya, that means Indonesia, Java, that side. Okay, those countries, there was an emperor called as Sailendra. So that Sailendra has constructed a Buddhist temple in Nagapattanam, which is in Tamil Nadu. So just imagine that Cholas are so powerful. Okay, a Indonesian king practicing Buddhism has come to Tamil Nadu and built a Buddhist temple with the permission of local Chola king Rajaraja I. So that's the extent of the rule of Cholas, right? Rajaraja I made scientific survey of lands and started keeping the records. He had also built a dam across river Kaveri. So, friends, you should observe, you should understand that Cholas are the first kings probably to build more number of minor dams. That's why Tamil Nadu is very rich in irrigation because of its Cholas constructed minor dams. There are hundreds of minor dams which are present in Tamil Nadu. Okay, so that's why naturally they had this very good irrigation facilities for the river Kaveri. Right. So who had started this? Rajaraja I. He had started building dams. He had also started making scientific survey of lands. Now coming to Rajendra Chola, he has annexed total Ceylon. Ceylon means Sri Lanka. So Rajendra Chola has annexed Ceylon. He has even defeated Pala kings in the Ganga Valley and achieved title of Gangai Konda. Friends, Rajendra Chola has achieved this title called Gangai Konda because he has went up to the Ganga Valley, Ganga River, and has even defeated Palas. Rajendra Chola has also defeated the Srivijaya Empire or the Indonesia. He established many residential education centers and got also the title of Pandita Chola. Pandita means like very learned man, right? So he is also a learned Chola. That's why he's called Pandita Chola. Friends, there is a place called Tribhuvanam. Okay, Tribhuvanam was the seat of learning under Cholas. So Chola's education can be related to this Tribhuvanam. Now coming to another person called as Rajendra Chalukya, also called as Kulottanga Chola I. Friends, you should understand this Karnataka Maharashtra part was initially, by the end of ancient history, it was ruled by Western Chalukyas, also called as Badami Chalukyas. Badami is a place in Karnataka. So from them, I would say their cousins or relatives came to the eastern part of the Deccan Plateau, that is towards the east coast of Andhra Pradesh, especially the Godavari region, and their eastern Chalukyas, okay, or Vengi Chalukyas was established. So what happens after some time? This Cholas empire from Tamil Nadu they get expands to the Andhra Pradesh as well, and the eastern Chalukyas and Cholas will merge, and then they will be called as Chola Chalukyas. Okay, so who is the first person to start this Chola Chalukya empire is the Rajendra Chalukya or Kulottanga Chola one. So that's why this name Kulottanga is very important, because Kulottanga Chola one is the founder of Chalukya Chola dynasty. From then on, there is no more Eastern Chalukyas, friends. From then on, everything from the border of Odisha, Andhra Pradesh to almost Tamil Nadu ending, that is up to Tirunanthapuram, the entire thing. Okay, even parts of Kerala, the entire thing is Cholas only, right? So that's he merged the Vengi Chalukyan kingdom into Chola Empire. Now, the present city of Visakhapatnam, all these are also developed under this Kulottanga Chola one only. Now, coming to administration, I can tell you, Chola villages enjoy total autonomy. Okay, their state was called as the Mandalam. Mandalam was divided into Nadu. Nadu was divided into Kottam. Kottam into Kurram. Kurram into Urs. Right. So now, what is the official language of Cholas? Obviously, Tamil. Kamba Ramayanam or Kamban Ramayanam. Okay, it was written by Kamba in Tamil and was called as Kavi Chakravarti. She was called as Kavi Chakravarti. So major port city of Cholas is Nagapattinam. Okay, friends, I have told you about Nagapattinam earlier also. This port was very essential for Cholas to trade and also conquer Southeast Asia. Okay, their major trade guild was related to metals, that is Manigramam. So what about their society? Friends, in Cholas, society was divided into two important castes. Okay, they are called as Idangai and Vadangai. Society, the Aryanization process was consolidated in South India and Sanskritization was started. Upliftment of backward castes was a salient features of Chola society. Friends, I have told you in earlier ancient history podcast what do you mean by Sanskritization of castes. Sanskritization means the lower castes, once they gain more money, obviously their status will improve in the society and they will go up the caste ladder. Okay, the lower caste will become the upper caste. That is called as Sanskritization or also called as Aryanization. So this process was achieved vigorously and extremely in South India, especially under the rule of Cholas. Okay, many of the backward castes became upper caste during the Chola period. Okay, some of the negative aspects of Chola society, friends, Sati has begun in this region. Devadasi system has started. Okay, Devadasi friends, some of the women, due to this feudal mindset, the some of the women were majorly fixed or involved only with the affairs of the temple, but later they became unfortunately prostitutes, friends. So they were called as Devadasis. But in the 20th century, actually, Bharatanatyam was again, okay, earlier, it up to 19th century, I can say Bharatanatyam in Tamil Nadu was majorly, widely believed to be related to Devadasis only. Normal women should not do Bharatanatyam, but in 20th century, that what to say, that thing has broken down. Okay, that stigma has broken down. Now it's like any woman, any man can do Bharatanatyam. Okay, so during the Cholas, there were also clashes between Saivites and Vaishnavites. Friends, the temple town of Cholas is the famous Tanjavur, where the famous Brihadeshwara temple was there. So this Brihadeshwara temple had the largest Vimana in India. It has 17 stories, similar to 17 apartments. Who has built it? Rajendra Chola one built the Gangaikonda Cholapuram, which is the pure replica of Brihadareshwara temple. Okay. Now, there is also a bronze statue of Nataraja. This idol was taken from Chidambaram temple. So, Chidambaram temple has this bronze statue of Nataraja. So, friends, I tried to bring out the key important aspects of these three important dynasties of India: Rajputs, Rashtrakutas, and Cholas. Okay, these are said to be the early medieval kings. That means these are the medieval kings who came before the Delhi Sultanate. Now, after these things, the Islamic invasion start and the Delhi Sultanate, later Mughals and all comes. Okay, so your next podcast, our next podcast will be about the Islamic invasions and the Delhi Sultanate. So if you like this, do like, comment, subscribe, and share with your aspirants. Thank you, friends.